Welcome back everybody to another episode of our weekly Moto News Roundup. But I've actually been away for a week or two, and so we've got plenty to catch up on when it comes to new bikes and also updates when it comes to rumours and developments. So there's the new BSAs, the return of the Gixxer, new colours for Kawasaki's Z lineup, and also a bit of a look at CFMOTO's new 750 sports bike. Then we've got a whole bunch of new bikes in the works from Honda, the latest on BMW's F450 GS, a new, more affordable model from Harley-Davidson, a date for the new baby Triumph THRUXTON, and also the most recent spy shots of a larger Continental GT from Royal Enfield. But before we get underway, we've got some winners to announce from our recent giveaways, so let's get to that straight away. Firstly, a massive congratulations to James Fernley, who won our Pando competition, in which you could win a jacket or top, a pair of jeans, and a pair of gloves. So a full riding outfit, very stylish stuff as well. And so a huge thanks to Pando for putting up such a great prize. Then on top of that though, we've got our CUBBY competition, which is another brilliant package of products, including their iO6 system, which adds all sorts of functionality to your bike, like blind spot warnings and dash cams and GPS tracking, but it can also pair with an action camera, so we've bundled in Insta360's latest Ace Pro 2, along with a year of Kawamoto's premium membership, so you can use it to get motorcycle-specific navigation through the CUBBY iO6 with its CarPlay function. Now this one was won by Matthew Bishop, so another big congratulations. We'll be in touch soon to make sure we get all these products out to you, and also, again, a big thank you to CUBBY for another brilliant prize. I will say there are discount codes for both Pando and CUBBY down in the description below, so do use those if you missed out but still fancy picking something up. And we'll be back next week with another great selection of products for our next big giveaway. But let's get into the bikes, and first up we've got not one but two new bikes from BSA, with the return of the Bantam in the form of a 350 single, and also the latest on their new Scrambler, which is powered by the same 650 single as their Gold Star. Both were launched at a press event at the Bike Shed last week, which unfortunately I missed because, like I say, I was on holiday. But fortunately, Tim was able to ride both bikes, and so he'll be popping into the studio soon so we can catch up on them and see whether they were actually any good out on the road. To me, both visually look really good. The pricing seems pretty keen as well. And so definitely hit subscribe if you've not already, or just keep an eye out if you want to see our full reviews of both bikes. Also, in the last few days though, we've had the revival of the Gixxer, with Suzuki announcing the full specs and details of their new for 2026 GSX R1000R. This one is a bit of an interesting one as well, because it's not particularly dissimilar to the last generation, which I think was updated in 2017, although they have had to do a bunch of work in order to make it compliant with the latest emissions regulations. That last one was Euro 4 compliant. They skipped Euro 5, and so they've had to make it compliant with the latest Euro 5 Plus or 5B regulations, which has been done with some significant changes to the engine internals. Unfortunately, it has meant a bit of a sacrifice in terms of peak power. It's lost about 7 horses peak, although it does still make over 190, which one would hope will be enough for most of us. Still, looking at the rest of the bike, visually it's not that different apart from the winglets. There is a bit more tech in terms of the rider aids, but it's still got an LCD dash. And so is there anything to make this an interesting proposition on the sports bike market, or does it just come up looking a bit old hat? One thing you could argue is that the engine changes have also helped to make it more tunable, so that could make it attractive to anyone who wants to race it, or potentially your very keen track day rider. But I think really a lot of this is going to come down to the price. If they can make it, down at the 15 or 16 or 17 grand end of the spectrum, that's going to look a lot more tempting than if it's getting on for 20, where you're starting to look at, a well-spec'd BMW S1000 Dart, or even getting a little bit close to a Fireblade or a Panigale or something like that. So here's hoping they get it right with this one, although I will say Suzuki don't generally have the best form when it comes to offering budget-friendly bikes. Take, for example, recently their new retro bikes, which are like 1 or 2 grand more expensive than the GSX 8S Naked that they share most of their componentry with. It seems like a lot of money for just a body kit and new paint and a bit of a different fuel tank. But hopefully they can pull it out of the bag with the new Gixxer. And I will say one big tick in the plus column for this new bike is the new paint jobs. They've got 3 different colorways, all of them quite punchy and quite different. And so I think they've done a pretty neat job when it comes to that. Speaking of, Kawasaki have also announced new paint jobs for their Z lineup, including the Z500, the Z650, and the top dog Z900. So let's have a look through them. The 500, for example, now comes in grey and orange, green and black, or a proper stealthy black and grey. Although if you do pay a little bit more for the SE version, you can get it in either black with green accents and wheels, or a white and red version, which might be actually my pick of the bunch. The Z650 though is an interesting one because they've just announced it in only one very plain, flat-looking white paint job, and so that has me thinking either they've got a load of last year's stock to still shift, maybe because of the Euro 5 Plus emissions regulations, or they're just not selling many of them, and so it's not been worth updating it properly. Certainly a bit of an odd move if you ask me, especially considering just how many paint jobs are available for the 500 and the 900, which comes in either a black with an orange frame, a green and black paint job, another stealthy option, or the best of the bunch in terms of all these bikes, I reckon, the SE version, which I think looks absolutely fantastic with its black and grey, green on the frame, green on the wheels, and then also the gold anodized fork and the yellow spring on the Olin shock. Prices still TBC on all of these at the moment, but do let me know what you think of them down in the comments. Moving on though, we've now got more details of CFMOTO's fairly hotly anticipated new sports bike, which is going to be called the 750 SRS. Now this one gets a 750cc inline 4 that's believed to make around 110 horsepower, and I reckon it could represent a good option if you want something fairly affordable that looks kind of sporty, but also with road-friendly performance and road-friendly ergonomics. I really like bikes in this sort of power range when it comes to road riding because they're fast enough to be fun, but they're not so fast that you don't feel like you're working them particularly hard. Although one thing in the spec sheet that does jump out as maybe a bit of a drawback of this new bike is the weight, which they say comes in at 470 pounds or 213 kilograms. If you put it head to head with an Aprilia RS660, for example, well, that comes in at 183 kilograms wet, which is, a huge difference, about 30 kilograms, and I'd expect they won't come in at completely dissimilar price points. Without knowing a bit more about it and having a good look at it, I can't really answer as to why it weighs so much, but certainly you'd say the visuals might be part of the problem, with it being very fancy and kind of almost overdone, with stuff like a quad exit exhaust, a single-sided swing arm, which is generally said to be a bit heavier, brake cooling ducts, aero winglets, all of these little appendages and extra bits. And so maybe they could have made it a bit more lean if they'd have just simplified it and slimmed it down. Still, they're maybe not looking to compete on out and out performance. It's realistically going to be price, as is more often than not the case with CFMOTO. So another one to keep your eyes peeled for when they do announce the price. But the 675 sports bike, the triple, well, that one sells for 6,999, I believe, here in the UK, with all your on the road fees. And so that's about £1,000 or two less than most of the immediate competition. Now, it's no huge secret that Honda have been working on a retro CB1000F. We've covered it quite a bit in the last few weeks, but also they've released a few concept bikes over the past few years, and they've been getting increasingly sort of production ready in terms of their spec. But this weekend, it was the Suzuka 8 Hours Endurance Race, and it's also a massive event in Japan and a good opportunity for them to show off some new metal. So yeah, it's our best look so far at both the naked and faired versions of this CB1000F, both of which were on the stand at the event, but also, I believe the naked version as well, put in a couple of demo laps. That half-faired SE version, I think they're calling it, looks absolutely beautiful in my opinion, although I wouldn't say there are any huge surprises when it comes to the spec. They look very similar to the CB1000 Hornet, but just with a slightly more old school styling package. To be fair, the CB1000 Hornet is fantastic for the money, so these should be, decent bikes to ride as well. Although it was nice to see a couple of different colour options on display, as so far with the concepts we've only seen the Freddie Spencer inspired silver and blue. Now, being in Japan, not many people have been able to cover it, but there are a few photos and videos from Japanese channels like this one, Motor Station TV. YouTube automatically dubs this stuff as well into multiple languages now, so do check those out if you want to see a bit more of the details in terms of a walk around. But naturally, as soon as we have the details here, we'll follow up as soon as possible. So again, do hit subscribe if you're not already. Also, it looks like Honda have got plenty more bikes in the works soon though, with a new teaser for their latest electric motorcycle, which will follow on from their EV Fun concept bike. I doubt it will carry the same name when it's announced. I think it will get something more serious and Honda-y, but this bike does look very, very interesting to me. You see, so far Honda have really focused on making urban mobility electric products, things like scooters and short distance bikes, because that's where they make the most sense. The ranges required are generally shorter, and also there are more opportunities to charge up. Every other manufacturer who's tried to make a more recreational electric motorcycle seems to have struggled to make them profitably. And so can someone like Honda, with the scale that they operate at, actually make a go of something that's purely built to replace your internal combustion motorcycle? Personally, I can't see it having any massive leaps in terms of range and charging time, so I still expect plenty of limitations. But I guess we'll find out pretty soon, because the date they gave at the end of the teaser was September 2nd. So again, another one we'll follow up with as soon as we have the details. But in the meantime, one thing is definitely for sure, and that's that the comments on the teaser on the Honda YouTube channel generally seem to be a bit reluctant. It's the usual arguments, you know, no soul, no sound, no character. I'd rather have a petrol bike. And so I'd love to know from you in the comments, do you think Honda can actually make a go at this one? And is it an electric bike you'd actually consider? If you do like your bikes more traditional though, well, it seems, you know, fear not, because Honda are still working on that stuff too. Or according to We Bike Japan, anyway, who published this interesting piece in the last week, which shows a couple of patents filed in the US and Europe for the name GB500. It's been rumoured for some time that they've been working on a slightly larger capacity version of their super popular 350s, but this development makes it look like a bit more of a realistic possibility, and they also speculate that the engine will be a bored-out version of their existing air-cooled 350, because they reckon they've built it intentionally with enough depth in the cylinder head, enough margin, enough material to be removed to allow them to build a 500 version later down the line. They also round off the article with some renders that show a more sporty appearance, with a similar overall theme to the 350, but just more vibrant paint, and the spoked wheels which give it a bit of a cafe racer look, an upside down fork, bar end mirrors. And so yeah, if it does come out looking anything like that, I'm sure it will be another hot seller for Honda. Also rumoured to be in the works is a follow-on from one of the coolest looking mini bikes that I think has ever been made, and that's the Monkey BAJA. It was a bit of an off-road inspired take on the Monkey platform that they sold many moons ago, and it gave it a bit of a baby Africa twin look, which I think is just fantastic, and I suppose a bit of a juxtaposition which gives it some novelty appeal as well. Now, Visor Down report that numerous sources in Japan claim that Honda's product team is working on a new version, and so I, for one, would absolutely love to see this bike come true. One that's absolutely nailed on though is the new BMW F450 GS, which they've confirmed is going into production after showing a prototype at EICMA last year. We knew also that TVS in India are building this new parallel twin on their behalf, and we've also seen plenty of spy shots of it while in development this year, so plenty is known about it, and we're expecting the full production version to be announced at this year's EICMA in November. I've got to admit though, from the test shots we've seen, one thing that maybe is a little disappointing about it is it doesn't look like it'll be quite as aggressive and sexy as the concept that they showed last November. And so the question is, have they watered it down and pared back the finish, I guess to make it more affordable to produce and maybe even more feasible to produce? Well, this piece on motorcycle.com is interesting. They've got hold of some of the latest filings with the UK's Intellectual Property Office, and what they do give you is a really clear clear view of what the finished bike is expected to look at because it's proper renders rather than slightly blurry and off-center spy shots. As part of the article, they've laid it against one of the similar photos of the concept bike, and you can run this little slider back and forth, and when you do that, you can actually see that a lot of what they've done is very much the same, with the overall dimensions barely changing. The wheel size is the same, the suspension travel and ground clearance looks the same, it looks like the same frame, same swing arm, and a lot of the bodywork. There are maybe some minor tweaks, but you've got to say most of it looks on point when you compare it with the concept bike. So I'm feeling maybe optimistic about this one. Maybe it just looks a little underwhelming because it's a test bike, so it's in black and it looks a bit rough, and maybe the renders look a bit underwhelming because they're just black and white. But with one of the fancy paint jobs, maybe the spoke wheels fitted, maybe the knobbly tyres, maybe with a bit of a rally seat accessory with a rear carrier rack, it could still be one very cool looking baby GS. Meanwhile, over at Harley-Davidson, well, things haven't been going particularly well recently. They've reported some fairly underwhelming financial results for 2024, and so perhaps the solution is to get involved in the more affordable mid-capacity part of the motorcycle market. That seems to be the plan, with their CEO, Jochen Zeitz, recently confirming on their latest earnings call that they're working on a new bike that will be called the Harley-Davidson Sprint, and it'll be sold for around the $6,000 mark. It's said to be due in dealers as early as October 2026, so I assume they're working on it as we speak, and I guess it will sit in the mid-capacity segment, although no specific details were given on that call. Now, you might already know that Harley make a 350 and a 500 to be sold out in Asia. It's built on their behalf by QJ in China, but it's said this new bike will be a brand new design, and so it'll be interesting to see what they come up with and what they change versus those other bikes that makes them more appealing, I suppose, to other markets. Certainly, this approach has worked for other brands recently. The GB350, for example, that we just talked about, has sold plenty of units for Honda this year. And also, Triumph had their best ever year in 2024 in terms of units shifted, owing to the success of their new 400s. So maybe Harley can replicate a little bit of that same formula. Speaking of which, there have been loads of leaks over the past week or so of the new Triumph THRUXTON 400, which is apparently going to be launched in the next few days. You see, it looks like they're being shifted around to dealers in India, ready to be unveiled to the public, and so as a result, numerous phone pictures and videos have been popping up all over the place on social media. One thing they do confirm these new shots is the name. You can see THRUXTON 400 on the side panels, and also the paint jobs, which look fairly vibrant, as you'd expect for a more sporty model. So there's a red one, a yellow one, and they get colour matched fairings and seat cowls, and also some stripy graphics just to make them look a bit more dynamic. I think they look pretty decent, but we'll get the full details anyway in a few days, with Triumph India posting a teaser on their Instagram which says they'll be out on August the 6th. So only a couple of days to wait. If, however, you want a retro cafe racer with a bit more punch and capacity, then perhaps hold on for the expected update to the Royal Enfield Continental GT, which has again been spotted out testing by Rushlane. This one gets twin discs, which is a bit of an upgrade over the current model. Also, it looks like the same TFT dash as their 450 bikes and the Bear 650. You can see that reflected in the windscreen in one of the shots. Cast wheels, bar and mirrors, but I think the main thing is a bit more pep, owing to the fact that it's rumoured to be a 750 instead of a 650. Now, the twin version of the Himalayan was also teased in the past few weeks, and so it seems like Royal Enfield are going to have a very important few months when it comes to EICMA in November. So that rounds off our update on some of the best new bikes and rumours. Do let me know what you think of them down in the comments below, and also if you missed any of our other videos in the last week or so, I'll make a playlist which I'll put on the screen now so you can catch up on all of them. We've got reviews of BMW's R1300R, Honda's new CUVe electric scooter, the Naxion electric motorcycle, which we compared to the BSA Gold Star, and also a standalone review of the Gold Star if you want more details on that. Plus some tips on how to use your action camera, and so do give them a click if you missed them. Also, hit subscribe like I say if you want all of the latest motorcycle news and reviews right here on MOTOBOB. A massive thanks for watching today, and we'll see you in the next video.